What if I told you some of the most desirable cities in Europe are on the brink of becoming completely unaffordable? From soaring rents to bidding wars for apartments, these urban hotspots are pricing out locals, and it's happening faster than you think. Stick around, because today we're uncovering the 5 cities where your dream of moving might turn into a costly nightmare. Dublin, a housing crisis in the Emerald Isle. Dublin might charm you with its cobblestone streets and lively pub culture, but beneath its cheerful facade lies a housing crisis that's spiraling out of control. Once a city where young professionals could build comfortable lives, Dublin has now become one of Europe's most expensive capitals for housing. For many, the cost of living feels more like a mountain than a hill, with both renting and buying increasingly out of reach for locals. Housing prices in Dublin have surged well beyond what an average earner can reasonably afford. While the demand for homes continues to grow, the supply is stuck in quicksand. Years of under-construction projects, combined with restrictive zoning regulations, have created a severe shortage of available housing. Meanwhile, a significant number of private landlords have exited the market, discouraged by the introduction of rent caps and tax burdens. Their exodus is shrinking the rental pool, leaving renters scrambling to compete for fewer and fewer options. Even when something becomes available, tenants face record prices. This affordability crisis is especially harsh on Dublin's middle class. Today, the average age of a first-time house buyer in Dublin has crept up to an alarming 43 years old. Many young people and couples are stuck in a holding pattern, saving relentlessly, but still unable to keep up with rising deposit demands. Those who try to take the leap into the buying market are forced into bidding wars, where wealthy international buyers, often scooping up luxury properties for investment purposes, demolish any hope of locals standing a chance. For Irish families trying to settle down, this creates a situation that feels both disheartening and inescapable. Take, for example, the case of professionals like teachers and nurses, who earn steady but modest incomes. Many have shared stories of viewing dozens of properties only to be priced out at every turn. Some are considering long daily commutes from neighboring counties, or even choosing to relocate abroad entirely. For young professionals working in thriving industries like tech, the housing pinch isn't much better. While their salaries may seem generous on paper, the reality of rental prices frequently leaves them spending 40% or more of their income just to secure a place to live in the city. The tech boom in Dublin is part of what's fueling the demand for housing, but it brings its own set of challenges. As major companies like Google, Facebook, and TikTok expand their Irish operations, thousands of highly paid workers are pouring into the city. Their arrival drives competition in a market already straining under its own limitations. Foreign direct investment has undeniably boosted Dublin's economy. But as the city grows wealthier, locals are finding it harder to stay. Unsurprisingly, this affordability squeeze is pushing many people out. Migration patterns show a steady flow of residents trading Dublin for smaller Irish towns or leaving Ireland altogether to find affordable housing abroad. What used to be the dream of living in the heart of Irish culture is increasingly seen as a financial burden. If the housing market continues on its current trajectory, Dublin could soon lose a vital part of its character, its people. Berlin, from bohemian haven to pricey metropolis. Berlin was once the go-to destination for anyone looking for affordable living, paired with a vibrant cultural vibe. Artists, students, and expats alike flocked to the city, drawn by its bohemian charm and inviting atmosphere. But those days are starting to fade. The capital's reputation as the beating heart of creativity and accessibility is being eclipsed by bleak headlines about skyrocketing rents and an alarming housing shortage. Right now, Berlin is facing a staggering shortfall of apartments. Estimates suggest the city needs between 600,000 and 800,000 new units to meet demand, yet construction numbers are nowhere close to keeping up. In 2023, only around 16,000 new flats were completed, far below Berlin's annual goal of 20,000. These delays aren't just numbers on a page. Each missed target pushes rents higher and leaves countless residents in limbo as they scramble for the few apartments that do hit the market. And this isn't just a one-off issue. Backlogs have been common for years. The pressure has made Berlin's rental market unrecognizable to many of its locals. The average rent across the city now sits at €7.67 per square meter. But for a popular two-room apartment, that figure can skyrocket to €18.16 or more. For many Berliners, this has completely changed everyday decisions. Young professionals who once had their pick of trendy neighborhoods now find themselves priced out entirely. First-time buyers, once the backbone of Berlin's local housing market, are struggling to keep up, with bidding wars and ever-increasing deposit demands choking their chances. Institutional investors have only added to the pressure. Large-scale buyers often snap up entire properties, reshaping the market for their own returns and leaving average residents unable to compete. These shifts are breaking the traditional link between local wages and house prices, as the influence of outside money outweighs incomes earned within Berlin. For people who've lived in the city their entire lives, it's starting to feel like there's no way to reasonably stay within the communities they've built. Adding to this is Berlin's enduring popularity on the global stage. Its edgy cultural identity continues to attract international newcomers, whether they're affluent expats, tech workers, or digital nomads. While this influx contributes to the city's diversity and innovation, it also places unavoidable strain on already limited housing availability. The promise of Berlin as a cool place to live is colliding with the reality that it comes with sky-high competition for homes. Even new construction, often seen as a solution to housing woes, is falling victim to rising costs. Increases in material prices, labor shortages, and inflation have caused significant financial roadblocks for developers. When combined with high interest rates, the result is a slowdown in new builds, even from nonprofit organizations trying to create affordable housing. The shift is creating an identity crisis for Berlin itself, a city that once prided itself on accessibility, culture, and community is turning into a place where living comfortably feels exclusive rather than inclusive. Well-known residents like actor David Striessau have even moved away, unable to secure adequate housing. It's a stark reminder of how Berlin's transformation is leaving some of its history and its people behind. Now let's head to Switzerland, where another city's exclusivity is making headlines. Zurich, the price of perfection. Zurich is famous for its pristine streets, stunning lakefront, and exceptionally high quality of life. But that perfection comes at a steep price. As one of Europe's most expensive cities, Zurich pairs its world-class amenities with a housing market that locks out many who call the city home. The numbers paint a clear picture. With the cost of living for a family of four around $6,054 a month, excluding rent, it's no surprise that Zurich is feeling increasingly out of reach for most people. Part of what drives Zurich's high cost of living is its status as a global financial center and tax haven. Home to major banking institutions and multinational corporations, the city attracts wealthy expatriates and high-income earners looking to take advantage of its economic opportunities. This influx pushes housing demand higher, while leaving locals at a disadvantage. Limited land for development and strict zoning regulations means supply is perpetually lagging behind demand. Combine that with the preferences of affluent newcomers, and the result is a real estate market catering more to the wealthy than to everyday citizens. For people living in Zurich, rents alone can stretch budgets to the breaking point. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in the city center is 2,157.39 Swiss francs, while those willing to live outside the center can expect to pay around 1,654.69 Swiss francs, both still shockingly high. For families or anyone needing more space, the cost grows exponentially. A furnished apartment in an upscale area averages 3,923 Swiss francs per month, and even more modest locations still hover around 2,648 Swiss francs. These figures make living comfortably nearly impossible for many, especially locals earning average wages. The city's thriving finance and tech sectors, while beneficial to Zurich's overall economy, have also widened the gap between the wealthy and everyone else. The average monthly net salary in Zurich is an impressive 7,250 Swiss francs and 47 centimes. But as expenses like rent, transportation, and food pile up, even relatively high incomes are often stretched thin. Key workers, teachers, nurses, and other essential professionals face the greatest challenges. For them, the dream of living near their workplace quickly becomes unmanageable, forcing many to commute long distances or leave in search of affordable alternatives. Adding to the city's exclusivity is its appeal as a tax haven. Ultra-wealthy individuals and corporations are drawn to Zurich's favorable tax policies, further driving up property prices as high-net-worth buyers compete for premium real estate. This dynamic fuels a sense that Zurich is becoming a city designed only for the elite, with increasingly little room for its essential workers or middle-income families. Living in Zurich might seem idyllic from the outside: clean air, efficient public services, and excellent job opportunities. But for those struggling with its housing costs, the reality is more complicated. The very traits that make it an attractive place to work and live are also turning it into one of the least accessible cities in Europe. The exclusivity of Zurich's housing market has transformed it into a city where, unless you belong to the ultra-wealthy, the price of perfection may be simply too high. From Switzerland, we now turn to the Netherlands, where Amsterdam's housing market is facing its own unique challenges. Amsterdam, the city of skyrocketing rents. Amsterdam's picturesque canals might draw millions of tourists every year, but while visitors snap photos, the city's residents are facing a far less charming reality: skyrocketing housing costs. Over the past few years, Amsterdam has become one of the most unaffordable places to live in the Netherlands, with housing prices jumping nearly 10% in just 1 year. In 2025, the average sale price of a home hit just under 472,000 euros, a number that's unattainable for many locals, even those earning well above the national average. The housing shortage plays a huge role in this crisis. Despite government promises to build 100,000 new homes annually, construction has consistently fallen short, leaving supply far behind demand. In May 2025 alone, sales increased by 16% compared to 2 years prior, yet nearly every transaction represents fierce bidding wars. Those hoping to buy face a market where buyers need massive cash deposits, often upwards of 100,000 euros, to secure even a modest flat. This leaves many young families and first-time buyers completely priced out, forcing them to either delay home ownership or search outside the city entirely. The situation is even more dire for renters. Rents across Amsterdam have climbed to record highs, with mid-range properties, often priced between 1,500 and 2,000 euros per month, rapidly disappearing from the market. Short-term rentals, driven by Amsterdam's booming tourism industry, have also reduced the availability of long-term housing. Many homes, particularly in popular neighborhoods, are being purchased not as residences, but as investments, further straining the already limited housing supply. For locals, this means higher competition for fewer places to live, a cycle that continually drives prices higher. Expats, meanwhile, have often been cast as scapegoats for the city's unaffordability. Amsterdam's thriving tech sector and tax incentives attract workers from across the globe, many of whom hold higher-paying jobs compared to the average Amsterdam resident. Their ability to outbid locals in both the rental and buyer's markets has become a point of tension. However, the reality is far more complex. While expats certainly contribute to the strain, the root of the crisis lies in systemic issues: years of underbuilding, a lack of affordable options, and unchecked demand. The government's attempts to address these problems, such as the Affordable Rental Act, have had mixed results. Introduced in 2024 and enforced from 2025, the Act uses a points-based system to cap rents in certain sectors. While intended to cool the market, it has also caused many landlords to exit completely, shrinking the rental market further. Between 2021 and 2024, the number of available rental units dropped by nearly 38%, leaving many residents with fewer choices and higher costs. Longtime locals, struggling to keep up with mounting rents, are increasingly being forced to leave the city. Some reports suggest that over 3,000 employed Amsterdammers are now considered economic homeless, unable to afford even short-term accommodations. Amsterdam's identity as a vibrant, livable city is under threat. Rising costs and the lack of affordable housing are driving out the very people who make the city unique: artists, teachers, young families, and middle-income professionals. Without meaningful change, Amsterdam risks becoming a city designed for tourists and wealthy newcomers, not the residents who bring its distinct culture to life. Finally, let's head to Spain, where Barcelona's housing crisis is sparking protests and international attention. Barcelona, a city battling tourism and real estate speculation. In Barcelona, protests erupting over skyrocketing rents reveal a city deeply divided. On one side, there's the image of a vibrant, community-driven metropolis with historic neighborhoods and lively street culture. On the other, there's a housing crisis pushing locals to the edge. With rental prices climbing to unsustainable levels and home ownership slipping further out of reach, Barcelona is at a breaking point. The root of the crisis lies in how housing has been reshaped by mass tourism and the rapid spread of short-term rentals. As over 32 million tourists pour into the city annually, entire neighborhoods have been transformed. Properties once meant for local families are now being snapped up and flipped into vacation rentals. Popular districts like El Raval and Barceloneta, once thriving with everyday life, are now inundated with short-term lets, creating an environment where the needs of tourists take priority over residents. For locals, this doesn't just mean losing housing. It means losing the unique rhythm of their neighborhoods. On top of tourism, another driving force behind Barcelona's housing affordability crisis is the influence of international investors. Real estate funds and wealthy foreign buyers are flocking to the city's booming property market, treating homes as speculative assets rather than places to live. Properties are often purchased with profit in mind, sitting vacant or being converted into high-end developments for temporary occupants. This trend has intensified competition for housing and has driven prices far beyond what the average Barcelonian can afford. For most locals, this is an impossible situation. Competing against cash-rich investors who can quickly outbid them is a losing game. For young professionals and families, the choices are grim. Faced with soaring rents or impossible purchase prices, many are choosing to leave the city altogether. Reports show a growing exodus as former residents head to surrounding towns or even other countries in search of affordable options. The outflow of locals is reshaping Barcelona's cultural and social fabric, leaving behind a demographic skewed toward tourists and high-income transplants. The vibrant mix of people that once defined the city is being eroded piece by piece. Residents have taken to the streets, staging protests to demand action. Many of these protests center on the government's insufficient response to the crisis. While some measures, such as a ban on short-term rentals in certain areas and financial incentives for long-term letting, have been introduced, their effects have been minimal. Rent control laws have proven largely ineffective due to loopholes and inadequate enforcement. Meanwhile, the pace of new housing construction remains painfully slow. Adding to the frustration is the large number of properties that sit underutilized, including empty apartments held by speculators or seasonal homes rarely occupied. As the crisis deepens, Barcelona risks losing its soul. The very identity of the city, its warm, tightly knit communities and bustling street life, is being threatened by these economic pressures. Unless meaningful action is taken, Barcelona could transform into a city reserved exclusively for the wealthy and temporary visitors. So, with these cities facing mounting challenges, what does this mean for Europe's urban future? Across Europe, cities once known for their vibrancy and opportunity are becoming increasingly unlivable for those who call them home. The growing divide between affordability and desirability points to more than just rising costs. It reflects social exclusion and declining quality of life. As the European Commission has warned, the housing crisis threatens labor mobility, competitiveness, and even demographic stability. These challenges aren't isolated. They shape the futures of cities and the people within them. Staying informed about urban trends and critically assessing housing policies isn't just important, it's essential. Ultimately, affordable housing isn't just about shelter, it's about maintaining thriving, inclusive communities.